It's a brand new week. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning. 55 minutes of current and relevant business conversation. That's what we do here normally, and that's what we're doing today. And we're starting from the global space as usual. Oil prices inched up in early trade on Monday, but remain dogged by uncertainty over trade talks between the U.S. and China, clouding the outlook for global growth and fuel demand, while the prospect of OPEC Plus raising its supply casts more gloom. So for this morning, 21 cents, that's about 0.3%, has been added to Brent, and we've seen it move up to $67.08 a barrel. WTI also went up 0.4%, that's just about 24 cents to $63.26 a barrel. Absence of news is pushing oil prices modestly higher as traders are positioned short ahead of potential increase of OPEC Plus supply from May 5. That's just next week, that meeting that they're having, and that could bring a significant production boost in the United States. That's also another factor. Some members of the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies, that's OPEC Plus, are expected to suggest that the group accelerates oil output hikes for a second consecutive month when they meet next week. Monday, expectations of oversupply and concerns about the impact of tariffs on the global economy caused Brent and WTI to fall by more than 1% last week. The market has been rocked by conflicting signals from the U.S. President Donald Trump and Beijing over what progress was being made to de-escalate a trade war that threatens to sap global growth. Investors are also watching the nuclear talks between Iran and the U.S. in Oman, which is set to continue this week. Then we come to Nigeria. The Nigeria Depositors Insurance Corporation has commenced the payment of 46.6 billion naira as the first tranche of liquidation dividends to depositors of the defunct Heritage Bank, whose funds exceeded the maximum insured limit of 5 million naira. According to the NDIC, the payment of the first tranche of liquidation dividends started on Friday, April 25, and is aimed at assuring that all eligible depositors of the closed bank are adequately reimbursed. The NDIC adds that the liquidation dividend represents the amount paid to depositors from the proceeds realized from the sale of the bank's assets and recovery of outstanding debts in excess of the maximum insured limits. FITCH Ratings has upgraded the long-term foreign and local currency issuer default ratings of Kaduna, Kogi, Lagos, and Oyo states from B- to B, reflecting improved macroeconomic stability and recent policy reforms in Nigeria. According to the agency, in line with its rating criteria, the sovereign rating upgrade has been mirrored in the states, given the predominant role of the federal government in Nigeria's intergovernmental fiscal framework. The agency cited several key drivers behind the revised projections for the four states. These include steeper depreciation of the naira, expected to exceed 1,500 to the dollar between 2024 and 2025, and a trend of high but gradually declining inflation. It also notes an increase of over 20% in federal VAT and oil-related transfers to the states in 2024, and this is providing critical financial support. Now, women are taking their place in technology and otherwise, and so they had this DeFi summit in Lagos where they talked about how to foster cooperation among the women to build greater ties, stronger ties on the continent.
At the center of that,
it may not be much, but the women are still pushing the frontiers in discussions. This time, it's Women in DeFi Summit for 2025. Participants are mostly Africa's premier female-led Web3, championing women in blockchain, technology, and digital careers. Their conversations here is on the theme, Building Bridges, Connecting Women, Inspiring Innovation. They say this is designed to empower and equip women across Africa with the tools, knowledge, and networks they need to thrive in the world of Web3 and decentralized finance.
The way we live, it's changing the way we communicate. It's changing the way we transact and work. And at the center of that transformation is decentralization. Power is shifting from the few to many, from centralized systems to distributed networks. The world is becoming more open, more inclusive, and more participatory. And guess what? Women make up 51% of the entire global population. So there is no way that we're not part of this transformation.
And while convincing the world to let women have their space, they must also bring each other up.
Out on your shit. Do you get? Whether you're my friend or you're my community member or you're just a normal person I see on Twitter, I will call you out on your shit. So that is why I want us to do, there's something called a body system, a Web3 body system. Create your own body. You don't necessarily have to be friends with that person. Like, you see someone on Twitter, person has potential. You too, even if you are just growing, carry that person close to you. Share updates within yourselves. You learn together. I was able to grow to the extent I'm in right now. I mean, I'm still growing, thanks to the people I have in my body system.
The organizers say this inaugural edition aims to bridge the gap between curious learners, professionals, and industry leaders through curated sessions and meaningful dialogues. So the spring meeting is over in Washington, but of course, a lot of things came up from there, apart from the almighty trade war and the impact or potential impact it could have in global economy. One of it is the World Bank revealed that Nigeria is housing 19% of the extremely poor in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, that is a worrying one. We've seen a lot of policies, obviously, social interventions by the government that is supposed to douse some of the impacts and consequences of the reforms, which has driven more Nigerians into the poor and even extremely poor brackets. Well, let's find out if there's something we can do more. Perhaps the government is missing with Dr. Iwoha Akpera. He's a former country director, Give Directly Nigeria, joins us virtually now to discuss this. Dr. Akpera, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Benita. Thanks for having me.
Great. So we saw this disturbing number. I know that Nigeria, of course, we've been part of the poor and extremely poor and, you know, multi-dimensionally poor and all of that. But having this number at 19% of extremely poor in sub-Saharan Africa live in Nigeria, that is also another level of worry for us.
Yes, it is. And the numbers are growing and will continue to grow as we continue to have some of these challenges. I mean, the challenge of climate change compounded by armed conflicts and other economic shocks will continue to grow these numbers. Nigeria, if we would like to unpack the 19% figure, you would look at some of the stats that are showing in terms of poverty in Nigeria. So 47% below the poverty line. That's nearly half the population of Nigeria. If we look at it from the point of view that we're about 230 million, so up to 47% will mean 108 million people below the poverty line. And when you look at multidimensional poverty, 133 million are multidimensionally poor. That means they are challenged. In addition to 108 million, the additional 27 or 20 million are challenged by several deprivations across health, education, and livelihood. So we are in a dire situation. I think it's time for Mr. President to declare a state of emergency on poverty in Nigeria, if there's any term like that.
Yeah, well, we had a declaration of on food insecurity. I don't know how much results we've seen, but we've seen efforts, we've had policies, we've seen numbers, of the government trying to bridge this gap between the rich and the poor and the extremely poor. What would you say is the ingredient that is being missed, which seems to deter the impacts that we're looking for in the country?
I think there is a combination of so many factors. I think the collapse of the local government structures could be perhaps one of the major challenges. Now, you could look at other gaps in terms of economic development or diversification, over reliance on oil, insecurity, etc. But you go back to the fact that one, we have decaying structures and systems that are not fixed, and two, we're not either leveraging or taking advantage of um, so many other factors like demographic dividends. We have a huge young population that is nearly wasting away and ready guns for insurgents and kidnappers and etc. and raising crime rates. So there are a combination of a lot of factors. Now, government in the past and even currently has been taking various steps to addressing these gaps. The challenge is in implementation, how effective has been some of these programs, how much of it has we interpreted into real results is a huge concern and can account or accounts for the gaps that we have.
So when we talk about implementation, I wonder what we can do differently because, I mean, it's still human beings represented in government that will have to implement the beautifully crafted policies. So what can we do differently? What's the hope here?
The hope lies with us as Nigerians. I mean, we're very intelligent. Nigeria ranks amongst the most intelligent people in the world. So it's not a lack of um, capacity. It's probably we need to up our game in terms of patriotism. We need to up our games in terms of um, supervision and guidance. For instance, the federal government shouldn't, in actual sense, be implementing programs at the local government level. They should stick to policy and provide the needed quality assurance and oversight on the state governments to be able to supervise and ensure that the local governments do well. So fixing the systems and the structures could help in addressing these gaps. And then we as Nigerians, we really need to perhaps increase our sense of patriotism to these issues. Because if you look at some of the problems, really, they are generated by us. The government, the president, in his wisdom, has pushed for local government autonomy. Uh, Money should be sent directly to the local government. Why are the state governors standing in the place and ensuring that this doesn't happen? You wonder. I mean, even if you want, there are so many issues that are challenging us about that, but I think most importantly, we need to enhance our sense of patriotism and ensure that what is this for the people gets to the people. Then we'll be getting it right.
Yeah, so I hear you imply the issue of transparency in the system, what she's meant for the people to get to the people, and then on the other side, the patriotism that we need from the followers. But of course, the followers will say, why do you expect us to be patriotic when we're not even getting what we're supposed to get? So I wonder where these corrections should start from.
It's a two-way traffic, right? You would expect the leaders to be transparent, accountable. You expect the leaders to uh, ensure strict adherence to um, programs, policies. You expect them to ensure equity and fairness in the discharge of their responsibilities. But then from the followers, you also expect them to be honest, to uh, also not mount pressure on leadership in a way that would push them towards not ensuring that the right thing is done. So it's a two-way thing. But most importantly, is fixing the systems. If you strengthen the system and the structures that are there, then the right thing will happen. If you ensure that, for instance, uh, you're bringing up social protection programs like cash transfer, and you're ensuring that strictly the criteria is mining from the social register, then you go back and ensure that the social register itself is accurate, for instance. The cash will always get to the people. Now, if you then create accountability structures from the community in a way that the community has a voice to say what is happening in the community, and you're taking it into account to improve the program, then it will all come together. But if we sit back to always blame leadership or blame the president or any other leader that is not doing it right, and then in our own little spaces, we are also not uh, doing the right thing, you will never get it right. It will continue to be the way it is, and perhaps no solution.
Yeah, it does sound like a complicated circle, Dr. Wakwa. And I mean,
You're right.
how do you see this happening in anytime soon in this country? You know, whether it's from
Yes, that's
the
it.
followers or from the leaders. I mean, because we know these things, we talk about these things, we've been talking about it for years. We see the programs, we applaud the policies, but you know, it's still back to the same circle or cycle at the end of the day.
I see it happening. Nigerians, we are very resilient. We are a people who, if we turn our attention to fixing anything, we do it and we do it right. I mean, look at us in the entertainment industry. Look at us in technology elsewhere in the world. When Nigerians will put our heart to do it, so I see it happening really. I see we getting to a point where we'll say enough is enough and we will turn things around. I see where the opportunities are given to the right people in terms of capacity and positioning people who have the knowledge and the capacity to do it. And it will start with just one sector. You just start with one sector and then you will see the ripple effect. Because the one thing again with Nigerians is we like to say we are always the best. We are very competitive amongst ourselves. So one person starts it right and the other says that he wants to replicate the same thing. I do go on and like that, and the ripple effect will be fed by all. So I see it happening, and I see it happening in our generation. We're raising a group of young men and women now who are saying it's enough, it's enough. And I just saw your clip with women in technology who are saying, look, give us a chance. And they're also proving it. So it starts like that and it will roll over. So I see it happening. I see it happening in our generation as well.
Interesting, and I do pray that. But what about the role of the government in accelerating this? I mean, that could also be very effective.
Yeah, the government first, we need to define whose responsibility, the responsibility lines, right? The federal government needs to be bold and take and show leadership and say, this is our remit as federal government. In a federation like Nigeria, define your role, stick to it. Define the roles of the state and make them stick to it. And then define the role of local governments and let the local governments also do their jobs. Where you have a collapse of systems and we politicize everything, then it leads us to this, right? So the federal government decides that he wants to strengthen health systems, for instance, and it goes to the local government and is building primary health care clinics. That's not your role. You shouldn't be doing that. When you begin to have the federal government go to the local government to build primary health care centers, for instance, it shows a huge collapse and a disconnect. Why are you not making the state government ensure that the local governments are building these clinics and responsible for it, for instance? That's an example. So we have, we have this thing about Nigerian and Nigerian, if it is not me, then it's not right, you know. But trust, delegate, ensure that it is done. So the federal government allocates resources, formulate policies and guidelines, ensure that the state government where the implementation is domiciled, it's done by the state governments, and the state government is also ensuring that the right people are doing this job. So you give the local governments, strengthen the local government system. Now, when we're young and growing up, in the agriculture sector, for instance, we had area development offices all across our political wards who were responsible for supporting agriculture in our villages. These development offices, we have tractors, we have farm imputes, we have fertilizers, etc. They also had consumer boards who are uptakers of produce. That has collapsed. Why are we not strengthening that? Why are we not reviving it? So you see, it is first strengthen governance and ensure that everybody is doing the right thing. Do the right thing in your space, trusting that the next person is doing the right thing as well. Even if the person is not doing, then the gap is clear and you can fix it. But where there are overlaps of responsibilities, overlaps of duties, then you have this. You have people running everywhere. You have agencies being created which are counterproductive to ministries. You have governments who are overlapping in functions because we, as we say, our politicians, we need to be seen directly by the people doing the work that we're doing. You have the House of the legislators leaving legislative functions to go and do what they call community projects or constituency projects, which is not their job. Why would you have a senator go to construct a road, for instance, that he wants to bring the dividends of democracy to his people? He's not bringing dividends of democracy to his people. He just wants to be seen as doing something for the people for next elections. Why is the local government not doing it? So this overlap of functions for personal gains is also causing us a lot of problems. So we need to take a step back, strengthen our governance systems and structures, and ensure that those who are responsible are doing the right thing. Then
I mean,
ensure that it fixes your people.
yeah. Well, strengthen the governance structure. I guess the followers too. Thank you so much, Dr. Iwakwa Akpera, a former country director of Give Directly Nigeria. Thank you so much for your time and your views.
Thank you so much.
All right, Dr. Akpera there was talking about an example with the agriculture sector, and we know that food is a major determinant of the status, is it poverty or whatever. And now we see the government also, talking of course, the federal government, that they're preparing to roll out. I'm sure you saw that 1.1 billion is what is at stake now to roll out national agribusiness policy mechanism. It's supposed to be a strategic plan designed to increase agricultural productivity, stabilize food prices, and fuel wider economic development. And the government, the federal government, say they're committed to green imperative projects. That's another project. It's a $1.1 billion partnership between Nigeria and Brazil, signed in March, and it's supposed to set and modernize about 774 mid-sized Nigerian farms with Brazilians. So this is just part of what we're discussing with Dr. Akpera there. We do have beautiful policies, applaudable, sounds good. But when it comes to implementing, I really do not know. But we have, you know, a farmer here, Mr. Tunde Banjoko, the managing director of Banjoko Motunde Farms. Mr. Banjoko, this is not a new conversation that I'm having with you, but I guess it's our duty to follow up on this. Yeah. Maybe this is the one that will bring succor, the succor we'll be looking for. Because we had the declaration of emergency on food insecurity in Nigeria. Yeah. We had the grains being given out. We had a suspension of tariffs and fines, stamp duties to allow food come in. And yet prices are still high, and yet our production is still low, and yet we're still talking about post-harvest losses. We're still talking of seasonal farming. I read an article over the weekend, and you know, an individual, an expert in that area was so angry that why do you say this is maize season and corn season? These are crops we should have all through the year. Yeah. You know, with the technology that is in the world now. Yeah. So maybe this is where the answer will be. Okay. This national agribusiness policy mechanism.
Yeah. So thank you, Uni, for having me. So I think from the body language of the Vice President on Friday, He also alluded to something that we've had several policies in the time past, but they never see the light of the day. So he alluded to that fact that, but this time we must make it work. So I guess what this new program is trying to get is one, they want to align all government intervention, local, state, and federal. So they are not operating in silos like they've been doing in the time past, and you can't really track or monitor anybody. And he also said that it's the governors that will be monitoring this one now. They'll be at the center of it. And I think they're also introducing two things. They want to introduce data into it, the use of data now. They also want to use digital platforms for the monitoring and evaluation of these things, which has always been one of the gaps. And they're also involving the private sector more in this project. So I think if they do this and they commit to it, we might start seeing a bit of difference. And because he also looked at the issue of why doesn't some of this intervention work? Because you just see this one will roll out this, nobody's monitoring it. This one will roll out that, nobody's monitoring it, and then everything just fizzles out. So I think if they are able to, and from the report we had on Friday, they are doing pilot phase in 13 states already. Though it's coming to most of us as fresh information, I admit. And
you're supposed to be a farmer, deeply involved in programs.
Information should have been, you know, a bit out there.
You shouldn't get it from the media.
From the media. We should have been aware. And they want to roll out the full one in June. So I think the fear will just be, let them execute as it has been stated. By June, we want to know. We are now assuming the 774 for the GIP, for example, means 774 local government. I'm assuming that's what it means because it was not stated as local government. They only said 774. I mean, they will roll out in all the states. The GIP will roll out in June 2025, 774 mid-sized farms, because I think they are merging two things now. The National Agribusiness Policy.
So, you know, the fact that you're thinking, Mr. Banjoko, the fact that you're thinking,
yeah,
you know, sends a negative signal.
Okay.
Except you are not incorporated in the farmers. You were supposed to be a major farmer in Lagos State at least, even though I think you have your farm in Ogun State.
Yeah.
So
and some other states.
And some other states. Now, if you are thinking you're not sure of the details, and there's a rollout in 13 states, and you don't have the details, who is the government or this private sector you're talking about? Who are they working with? Where is the hope of the program?
They will have to speak up for themselves. So, but I think I always like to give the government the benefit of the doubt. And what I mean by that is, if they roll out in 13 states as pilot phase, June is just 2 months or 3 months from now.
Yeah, next week is May.
It's May. No, this week.
No, this week is May.
By Thursday, it's May. So June is just about 2 months away. We can exercise a bit of patience to see the modality. But the concern is always around, earlier in the year, about 2,000 tractors, which is part of the GIP program that's been on for years, came into the country. As at now, I'm not sure they've been distributed. And they're expecting 10,000.
And I can tell you firsthand, I've been to some states, go to their Ministry of Agriculture, and you would see some of these tractors, which was celebrated on television, ribbons cut, just there and rusting away. And farmers are still using hoes and cutlasses.
So my concern is two. One.
So is that the connection thing that we're looking for?
Roll it out and let's move from being politicizing these things. Roll it out. And one of the issues government always have, you've talked about this initiative. This is the planting season for most of the southwestern states majorly. Why the northern states, some of them will probably start later in the year or towards the middle of the year because of their climate and rain pattern. So we should start rolling it out now when we need it more. Because what happens most times is that farmers get some of this information, input at the later time.
Just like you are getting it from television.
So, but I think all the same, it's a very good initiative, which I think if well pursued, because you remember, I think the last time I was here, we were talking about the recapitalization of Bank of Agriculture.
Yes.
The body language we also got then was that by first quarter in the year, it would have been completed. But even though we've seen
We're in
the
second
change,
quarter now.
we're in second quarter
Exactly.
now. Even though we've seen some move by the change in management, for example, that's a good move, showing that, okay, the government is still committed to this. But I'm not sure from the last I had, maybe about 2 weeks ago, the recapitalization process have not been completed. So we should go beyond talking
so sometimes,
to
even as a
implementation.
journalist, it can be frustrating.
Yeah.
You see programs like this and you invite individuals, and it just seems like, are we just here to fill airtime? But people are actually hungry. The reality is, even I'm a Nigerian. World Bank is talking about 19% of extremely poor living in Nigeria. And food, of course, is at the top of it.
Of course.
We live with this reality. So my job shouldn't just be to come and fill the airtime. It should actually be to make difference. You understand? And that's what we try to do. But when we just come and applaud programs, it can be frustrating. So we have this beautiful idea.
Very beautiful
and then
idea.
You ask who is in charge of this, and you find out it's a political connection that has been used to put somebody there, not somebody who has the know-how or the passion. And that is why we do have beautiful policies that we applaud. And we don't learn from the previous mistakes. We keep doing it. I just don't know where we're going to go from here.
The VP repeated that severally on Friday by saying this time they want to get it right. This time they want to get. So I'll also re-echo the same thing, that they should get it right this time. And not just and go beyond just bringing out beautiful policies. Let's execute for once. If we can execute this, you look at what.
Maybe because we're working with Brazil, maybe it will work.
It's not a Brazil factor; it's a Nigerian factor. Let's get it right this time. That's all I'm praying.
Let's get it right this time. Thank you so much for at least bringing that optimism to the conversation.
Let's
stay optimistic
and let's pray and wish the government will keep to their words. Two things I'm interested in this morning. Let's quickly wrap up that recapitalization of Bank of Agriculture. Is very crucial, and this program, let's get it on flying. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. I hope with you, Mr. Banjoko, Managing Director of Banjoko Motunde Farms Limited. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for coming on this morning and for keeping the spirit high.
Yeah,
we pray that that spirit will not be.
Because please, you look at what that program is meant to achieve. If we can get that achieved, I'm sure by the end of the year we'll sure all be smiling. If we get it right.
All right, so let's keep that alive. For the first time in Nigeria, the AMIDA conference was held right here in Lagos. And of course, the who is who in the financial and capital market from Africa and the Middle East, they were here. Let's give you that report and tell you a bit about what happened and what they discussed. Officials from the Federal Government, Securities and Exchange Commission, Africa and Middle East Depositors Association, AMIDA, and other financial market stakeholders are holding the 2025 conference. The theme is Shaping the Future, Financial Markets and Infrastructure as Catalysts for Transforming Economies. And the target is to accelerate collaboration to enhance capital market infrastructure and drive economic growth on the continent. The special advisor to Nigeria's president on economic affairs, Dr. Tope Fashua, is representing the vice president, and the message from him is diversifying the economy through financial sector.
Transforming economies will mean developing diversified economies and getting involved in global value chains with elevated value-added products and services and not mere crops and crude minerals. Transformation will mean recalibrating our financial markets infrastructure to deliver for our people, our companies, and even our government. We wish to assure all of us here the full support, cooperation, and collaboration of the federal government of Nigeria in this noble quest, and also emphasize that you are all welcome to having further deliberations that will make this quest a reality.
Panel session brings together stakeholders from members of AMIDA, and concerns span from domestic financial environment to global.
Locally, from our point of view, again, we are solution providers, so we are helping different sectors and industries into the capital markets area. But as it was mentioned, for instance, for bamboo, bringing those user experience capabilities to retail side and so on. So that's quite relevant. That's something that we see all across Africa. There are now new initiatives, again, either driven by fintechs or even directly could be by stock exchanges or well-known brokers or dealers and so on. So basically, now that's something that it's quite relevant and it's having a lot of traction.
We've got 6 crowdfunding intermediaries registered right now at the SEC. However, even though it's one thing to create the platforms and to create the opportunities, it's another thing for it to be subscribed. And what we have seen is, even though we've created 6 crowdfunding intermediaries, we have not seen the activity that we thought we would see from those who are seeking capital. So again, there's a disconnect there that we're studying.
This is the first time Nigeria's Central Securities Clearing System is hosting the 2-day event, and the meeting holds the view that financial infrastructure is not solely a technical tool, but constitutes an essential mechanism for development. Welcome back. It's still Business Morning, and this is where we go global. We're doing global news now, starting from foreign investors that have turned into net buyers of Indian stocks in April. That's what the data says, reversing a sell-off earlier in the month amid bets that the local markets will remain relatively insulated from the impacts of U.S. tariffs. Investors, they withdrew a record $8.6 billion from global sustainable funds in the first quarter. Analysts attribute the outflows largely to the shift against climate and social initiatives by the U.S. President Donald Trump. The biggest driver of the outflows came in Europe, which still accounts for most of the $3.16 trillion in the funds globally. Net withdrawals from European sustainable funds reached $1.2 billion in the first quarter, a reversal from net deposit of $20.4 billion in the prior quarter, and the first net outflows for the region since at least 2018. And the director of European Department at the International Monetary Fund, Alfred Kammer, has warned that while higher German infrastructure spending will boost Europe's economic growth in the coming years, it will not be enough to outweigh the expected drag from the U.S. tariffs. The IMF last week cut its growth outlook for Euro area, also making downgrades for the U.S., UK, and many Asian countries because of President Donald Trump's volatile tariff policy. The institution cut its Euro area growth forecast from each of the next 2 years by 0.2% to 0.8% in 2025 and 1.2% in 2026. Exemptions passed to Germany's long-standing debt rules have unlocked higher defense spending and enabled creation of a €500 billion infrastructure and climate fund. The move has been described by economists as a potential game changer for the sluggish economy, the largest in the Eurozone for this period. Chinese manufacturers are pausing production and turning to new markets as the impact of U.S. tariffs sets in, according to companies and analysts. The lost orders are also hitting jobs. Around 10 million to 20 million workers in China are involved with U.S.-bound export businesses, according to Goldman Sachs estimates. The official number of workers in China's cities last year was 473.45 million. Now, talking about the impact of the tariffs, it was a major conversation at the spring meetings in Washington, which ended over the weekend. The World Trade Organization DG was there and shared her thoughts on how Africa can stay insulated from some of the impacts.
On sub-Saharan Africa, the trade of the continent is very limited with the United States. So the continent as a whole is not that impacted. We've done the analysis. Africa's exports, 6.5% of Africa's exports only go to the US, and 4.4% of its imports come from the US. Okay, so the impact for the continent as a whole is not that bad. However, it's both good news and bad news. Good news is that it's limited. Bad news is, well, we're not trading that much, which is not a good thing. But the problem is that within Africa, there are a handful of countries that are very severely impacted because they've got high reciprocal tariffs put on them, and these are poor countries. From the global environment, the message to Africa is you have to rely more self-reliance. We have to do more in Africa to rely on our own resources. Now, it's very clear. Aid is disappearing. Okay, there may be a little left, but it's disappearing. We need investment. So when you need investment, you have to do so much more in terms of mobilizing domestic resources to put infrastructure in place, removing bureaucratic barriers so investment can come in. And this is what we need to do, and we need to trade more. We cannot trade more externally, where our trade is only 3% of world trade, or internally, where intra-Africa trade is 16 to 20% at most. If we don't add value to our products, we keep exporting the same things.
The issue of adding value to our products was a conversation we had last week, and it's a continuous one. Now, in the UK, the economy is set to slow sharply for the next 2 years as Donald Trump's global tariff begin to weigh in. This is according to a study by a leading forecaster. The findings by EY Item Club, which is sponsored by Big Four Accountancy, as a separate survey reported that confidence in Britain's economy has fallen to the lowest level on record. And the latest poll, also, which has been tracking net economic optimism in Britain since 1978, found that 3/4 of Britons expect the economy to get worse over the next year. Just 7% think that the economy will improve, while 13% say it will stay the way it is, equating to a net score of 68. IMF warns of major negative impacts from Trump's tariffs. According to EY's forecast, they say it now expects UK GDP to grow by 0.8% this year, down from a projection of 1% in February, and have cut its 2026 forecast from 1.6% to 0.9% as longer-term effects hit the UK. Last week, the International Monetary Fund downgraded its growth forecast for the UK this year, 1.1%. And has been forecasting as recently as January, while the governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, said that the UK faced a growth shock from Trump's trade policies. Now we move to Japan, where Japan's benchmark topics index rose to erase all losses triggered by Donald Trump's reciprocal tariff announcement as progress in trade talks and a slightly weaker yen fueled appetite. Gains in Toyota Motor Corporation and its group companies also boosted the broader topics index, with the car maker rising 3.6% after a report that Chairman Akio Toyoda has proposed a buyout of Toyota Industries Corporation. Chinese artificial intelligence service DeepSeek became available again on South Korea app markets on Monday for the first time in about 2 months, when downloads were suspended after authorities cited breaches in data protection rules. South Korea's Personal Information Protection Commission said that the DeepSeek transferred user data and prompts without permission when the service first launched in South Korea in January. Downloading the app was suspended in February after the questions over personal data protection surfaced. But the service was available for download again on South Korea's app market, including via Apple's App Store and Google Play Store. DeepSeek said users had the option to refuse to allow transfer of personal information to a number of companies in China and the United States. Saudi Arabia's foreign direct investment inflows fell for a third straight year in 2024, in a sign the kingdom continues to face challenges in attracting overseas investors. Inbound FDI shrank 19% year-on-year to $20.7 billion, and that's the lowest since 2020, according to an annual government report that tracks progress on the kingdom's economic diversification efforts. Now, Thailand will require foreign visitors to fill up a pre-departure digital form from May the 1st, a move that will make it easy for authorities to track travelers amid a broadening crackdown against human trafficking into Southeast Asia's illegal cybercrime centers. Beginning from today, travelers can fill up the Thailand digital arrival card for trips beginning Thursday. The online card replaces the previously used paper form and is mandatory for all foreigners entering back to the country by air, land or sea routes. This is according to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The forms can be accessed on the Thai Immigration Bureau's website. Pakistan's closure of its airspace to Indian Airlines Thursday is forcing carriers to alter some routes that link India to Europe, North America, Central Asia, and the Middle East. Indian carriers, including Air India, Indigo, Akasa Air, and SpaceJet, must now fly longer and thus costlier flights on some westbound routes. The detour could push some flights to add a refueling stop or cancel certain routes altogether. Indigo, the country's largest airline by market share, said it expects a few international flights to be affected, while Air India said some of its flights to or from North America, Europe, and the Middle East will take an alternative extended route. Both statements were made last week on social media platform X. The airspace closure comes amid tit-for-tat reactions for the nuclear-armed neighbors following the killing of 26 tourists in a town there at Falgam in the northwestern India-administered state of Jammu. India has linked the massacre to Pakistan militants, which Pakistan denies, and Pakistan has called for a neutral probe into the incident that has reignited tensions over the long-disputed territory claimed by both countries. Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll conclude the program right here on Business Morning. Stay with us. Well, while countries are looking for ways to improve their potential, Nigeria has not been left out. So while the women are looking at ways to inculcate technology into their work, it's also a federal thing. It's beyond the women. So we see even our vice president having conversations with global parties on how Nigeria can maximize its potentials in technology and related areas.
The 6 indicators from health, education, and labor force selected as quick wins under the HCD 2.0 strategy positions us to make informed policy decisions and measure our progress against tangible benchmarks. Whether in utilizing the platform of the National Economic Council and the HCD Steering Committee to bring together key stakeholders or in insisting on data-driven governance, we will continue to hold ourselves accountable and press forward toward our bold goal to elevate Nigeria among the top 80 countries in Human Capital Index rankings. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this is why we are here. We need the World Bank and other partners to continue to walk the journey with us. We have enormous tasks ahead. We need provisions such as state-by-state human capital index data so that our interventions can be evidence-based and targeted. This will certainly help us design and deploy the right program that will yield the greatest impact, especially in areas such as early childhood development, education transition rates, and basic healthcare access, and assist in building an accountability framework that rewards performance and creates the right incentives for sustainable progress.
It's a collaborative work, World Bank and IMF, but of course we remember that Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is challenging Africans to look inwards and not just looking out for help. Well, that's it on the program this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of Business Morning. It's a new week. It's just the beginning of our conversations. We have another one tomorrow. Oh, before that, 1 p.m. I'll be back. I'm Amy John McGrath.